In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie.
Hello. Ryan Roxie here. Welcome to another live stream edition of In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie. I am your host. And if this is the first time you are watching or listening to us, do us a favor and just give us a subscribe right there by that button on the YouTube or Facebook Live. And if you're listening to one of the platforms that's on the Apple or Google or any of those, Spotify, just give us a like, and if you can, we'll try to provide you with as much entertainment as we can in the future, because we are live and in the trenches. And today, man, it's a friend that I've known for many years, and there's so many cool things to talk about. And what we were talking about right before the podcast started is that this is his first, not only his first In the Trenches sort of appearance, but it's his first sort of dive into this live streaming interviews. So we will cross our fingers and hope that the internet gods cooperate with us. I'll give you a little history about him. Guitarist, which is always, I'm happy when a guitarist comes on, because that means we get to talk not only stories, but we get to talk some gear as well. And we both have a lot of the same influences as well. Guitarist for many years. Actually, for all the years that the band has been in existence, the band is called the Quireboys, and the guitarist in question is, would you welcome to In the Trenches, Mr. Guy Griffin. Guy, come on out. What's up?
Hello. How are you?
How are you doing, man? Nice to see you.
Yeah, great to see you.
So when you, right off the bat, you can see that there's a comments board to the right of you on your screen. So if you need to put on your readers, like I make no excuses anymore. I wear them all the time. If you'd like to read any of the comments, or if you, we might have some people come on that have some questions for you, but I'm just happy to have you here, man, and I'm happy to be sort of your first time with these interviews, these live stream interviews. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's quite a strange thing looking at the screen.
Not knowing exactly who to look to or where to look to.
I'm Mr. 20th century, not 21st century. I'm dipping my feet in the 21st century.
Yeah, you're still a 20th century boy. You're still a 20th century boy. Yeah. I mean, that's obviously right off the bat. I'd have to say that Mark Bowen, T-Rex, that's a common influence that we have.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah. I caught you actually playing, was it 20th Century Boy the other day? I watched your podcast.
Thank you very much. Yeah. That was a Sunday live stream that we did, and we're very grateful to everyone that's out there in the chat that follows that as well. But I played that a little bit in part because we had Adam Slack from the Struts on, he's a bit, he's one of those kids. We're sort of the grandfathers at this point, or maybe we're the older uncles. We're not grandfathers yet.
I haven't even bothered coloring this in today. Yeah, it's like, whatever.
No, and I haven't shaved since the live stream. So there you go. But the thing is, we still have our godfathers of rock that are still out there touring and still out. I mean, as long as Keith Richards is doing it, then he's basically the Yoda of rock and roll. But I think we all sort of follow from that sort of tree. We were branches off of the tree of Keith Richards. And also, I think Joe Perry is one of those big influences that could be seen as an older, but you and I, we're getting to be uncles. We're getting to be older uncles because we have these kids in the Struts that are coming up with the same influences.
Yeah, but it's cool seeing bands like that, especially since it's a UK band and doing well in the States. I believe they're from Derby, and that's kind of an unlikely place to come from. Most bands comes from London or Manchester, and that makes it even cooler.
Well, absolutely, and that's the thing. The cool equation or the reason why I wanted to ask you about the Struts right off the bat is because, in a way, the Struts are just another incarnation of a straight ahead rock and roll band, having classic overtones. And that obviously is what the Quireboys are to this day. And when you started out and you kicked off in the late 80s, the Quireboys had that same exact, I would say, the press hype that the Struts are probably getting in the last couple of years. The Quireboys had that out of the gate, and you've actually managed to just, the thing I admire most is that the Quireboys have managed to continue and always make records, always make music, and tour today.
Well, we started off the same as you started off, or anyone else. It's you start because you have all these dreams of all this sort of stuff happening, and some of us get lucky enough that it did happen. But for even 95% of that small percentile, it doesn't last forever. It lasts for a couple of years, the peak of it,
Right.
And you make the most of it and enjoy it while it's happening, and then you just continue with a career, and sometimes it's a relief, because you can just sort of concentrate more on the musical side of it, and and get back to the reason you did it in the first place, But when it's at that point where it's really successful and it's all on the up, there's nothing more exciting. So I'm sure they're enjoying themselves,
Absolutely. And he seemed like he was having a good time with it. They all moved to Los Angeles.
Of course they did. That's what I did.
It's right out of the book, isn't it? Right out of the blueprint. But the thing is, can you remember those hyped early days? I guess it was the late 90s or late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
Do you remember that sort of time, or right now does it seem like it was a little bit fuzzy? Because for me, honestly, things in the late 80s up through pretty much the 2000s, there are a little bit fuzzy for me.
I think a lot of that era is very clear to me, because I was really sort of new to it. I was only like 19 when I joined the band, and then at 20 I was in Los Angeles, recording at Cherokee Studios with Rod Stewart's producers, and it was crazy looking back on it.
Here's a funny side note. When I was living in Los Angeles, and it was a couple years before that, just a couple. But when I moved down there in 83, 84, I was the night shift at Cherokee Studios. So I was probably, I was sort of brushing off the cocaine from the 24 track machine. Right. And I was, there was a lot of sweeping in the late night shift, but I would always go into one of those little small studios and crank up Cheap Trick. And because no one else was there, and it was like bands like Motley Crue and Crocus. It was a little bit before you that wave of your band had started getting in there and recording. But I remember Cherokee Studios as well. It was amazing.
It was just amazing times. So I remember a lot of that. Even though obviously there was a lot of partying going on, but like I said, I was the youngest member of the band, and I was very green, so it was actually, it's quite fun. It's quite a funny thing to throw a 20-year-old guy from Bedford into Los Angeles. I'd lived in London for a little bit, so wasn't. But
your home is Bedford, and Bedford's slightly out. One of our team members, one of the Roxy Guitar Army members, Robby Miller, he's from Bedford as well. I guess Bedford is the home of Robby Miller, Guy Griffin, and John Oliver. Those three. Did you guys ever meet up at a pub at one time?
No,
I remember meeting. No, huh?
No. I'm probably a few years older than John Oliver, and it's funny, I was in Los Angeles a couple of months ago, and there was a big billboard, and I was like, it was this sort of school picture, as some geeky kid, and then I realized, it's him, and someone said, oh yeah, he's from Bedford, and I I thought he went to Bedford School, which was the posh school, private school.
Right.
And but it turns out he actually did go to the same school as I went to, and I believe Robby went to the same school as I did.
He's shaking his head yes backstage. I can see.
Yeah,
So,
Mark
you guys all went
Rutherford.
to school. Nice, man.
The School of Hard Knocks.
Well, let me ask you then about being this kid in Bedford and playing guitar. Who were those early sort of idols, and how did the Quireboys find you? Because the story that I have been told is that Ginger from the Wild Hearts was the original guitar player of the Quireboys, and then you went in to fill his spot. How did they find the 19-year-old kid, and who were you listening to?
All my influences was AC/DC, really. I mean, that was from that age, when I first started playing guitar, or when I wanted to start playing guitar, that was AC/DC all the way. And then discovered other things along the way. I started playing in bands when I was about 16, and I started playing in a band that was doing covers by a band called Dr. Feelgood, which were like a sort of punky sort of R&B, what we call R&B band in the UK, which is kind of like pub rock, sort of more like the Clash and all that sort of stuff. But it was
before the Motley Crue song, obviously.
Yeah, the band Dr. Feelgood, and the guitar player Wilco Johnson is just out of this world, And but it was that sort of stuff that was not easy to play, but you could do your version of it,
So you played your share of pub gigs.
Oh yeah, yeah. Before I joined the Quireboys.
Was that with Cradle Snatchers, or was
yeah?
That with
then I went on to do that. That was by that time. That was when there was all that sort of Hanoi Rocks and all that kind of stuff. That was getting into Lords of the New Church and all that kind of thing. Johnny Thunders and all that.
There was more
New York
Scarves
Dolls
getting into the mix. A little bit more Scarves, and more Velvet.
There's more of Mum's Wardrobe coming into the mix.
Well, you can understand that, at that time, I'm the same age as you, roughly around there, maybe a few years older, younger. I don't even know at this point. It doesn't even really matter. But my band's living in New York. We are flying over to London to make our record with Tony Visconti at the Good Earth Studios, and
I didn't know you did the album with him. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah,
that was a big historical thing for us. We were really happy that we were able to get Tony to do it. We recorded at Good Earth, and the Good Earth Studios had the same sort of reputation, I guess, as Cherokee Studios in LA. So it's almost like we switched places, because the band had moved from LA to New York, but we were and we would go down to, I think it was Kensington or any one of those markets down there in London.
Kensington Market, there was the indoor one where at the time it was the indoor market in Kensington, where they'd have where you get all the cool clothes, and that's where Freddie Mercury and Roger Taylor first had their clothing stall in there.
Well, we definitely, I mean, we were definitely borrowing from the same album covers. I would definitely say that image-wise, rock and roll influence-wise, I'm just not sure who had the first pair of fizzy jeans. I'm pretty sure you had a pair of black fizzy stretch pants before I did.
Yeah, probably.
and here's what people might not know in the chat, but I did mention it when I was hyping up the show, is that we, the Electric Angels band, were able to be the support band for your first U.S. tour. Now, and like, again, my memory is a little bit fuzzy of those days. I'm glad yours isn't so much, but I do remember one particular late night Denny's sort of breakfast type thing after a show. Do you remember that?
No.
I remember something then. No, but with me and you and a couple other people had gone out to it was one of the few shows that we had done.
On that tour.
On that tour, it was after the show, and then we just hang out and we talked rock and roll. And
not in LA when we after, because I remember
on the East Coast.
Yeah, I remember I remember those shows that remember the Cat Club, and then all that kind of stuff, and then we did all those East Coast shows, and I remember thinking your singer was amazing. He was just like this rock star,
Shane. That was Shane.
Yeah.
Well, trust me, man. Shane thought he was amazing as well, and as we all did. I mean, that was his thing. He definitely was able. He was very.
Most singers have to have that kind of thing.
Charismatic.
Is that the word? Yeah. All right. But
well, you have one. You have a definite charismatic singer in Spike, and the thing is, what I admire most is that obviously, singer guitar player relationships. I bring them up a lot over the years. That singer guitar player relationship can be a little bit roller coastery at times. It can be ups, there can be downs. But you guys have always remained, pretty tight with each other, pretty much making records with each other the whole entire time. I know you've played in other bands. We're going to talk about them, but what is the relationship with Spike, and what is it that makes it so special, that bond that you guys have?
I'm not sure. I haven't spoken to him since we got back from America.
All right.
No, it's just the usual. No, actually, I haven't really been in touch much with any of the bands since we got back. I think this is like the first time we've had an actual break in 20 years, more than 2 weeks or something. So I think it's almost been a breather for everyone. But
the work ethic that the band has, I would really like I'd like for you to explain it to the people, because when I think about it, when Robby's explained it to me before about what your cycle is, I think it's actually could be a good blueprint for other bands to follow if they want to put that amount of work in, because that's what's giving you the longevity of being in the Quireboys for so long. Just tell us what sort of your schedule you'd have normally if it wasn't these weird times. And I understand that right now.
Thank you, by the way.
For a lot of us, we are enjoying this break because it's giving us a chance to sort of take a time out and having or dive into lots of creative stuff. But what is a normal year cycle for the Quireboys? I know it's an album, tour, rehearse, album tour, but
apart from the rehearsals. There aren't really many. We don't rehearse. We just we go in and do a record. We have the ideas for the record. In the days in the era of garage band and all that kind of stuff, you can send stuff to people, and then we get together in a studio and knock it out in the studio, and that's it. And then when it comes to the tour, we might have one rehearsal before a tour just to go to decide which new songs we're going to put in the set. If not, it's just sound checks and stuff like that. It's just the necessity, because we all live as far flung from each other as you could possibly imagine in the UK. Just to get everyone together, it's just and putting everyone in hotels and a rehearsal room and all that sort of stuff.
Where you're talking to us from right now, is that sort of is this your idea room? Is this where you write a lot of the ideas? And because I see the guitar in the background, if we can get a full shot of that, I see there's some sort of Gibson 175, or is that a one?
Well, it looks like a Gibson. That's the main thing. It's not.
I didn't see the headstock.
No, it's a great guitar. It's a vintage by JHS, which we have a sort of deal with, and I use a lot of their guitars. But that's like a semi-acoustic. I don't get to use that with the Quireboys, but it's nice for strumming around. It looks nice on the wall as well.
Well, I know that you don't you haven't done a lot of live stream interviews, but you by far win the audio award for best microphone and voice quality so far of all our guests. All right, I wish you could could show a couple of our guests. No, it's better than an iPod. An iPod.
Well, I'm lucky. My girlfriend Michelle, she's a DJ, and also she does voiceovers. So in this studio, there's a sound booth just to the right of me, and So got a couple of nice mics. I don't know how to use them. She set it up for me. So
yeah, she was setting it up before the show. It sounds great though. But thank you. So does everybody out there? And now your internet's working good. I mean, everything's just flowing right now. And
I won't move. I won't. I was told not to move too much.
So I want to go back a little bit to the era of when the Quireboys were kind of not just on top of London, but you guys were doing on top of the world in many respects. You did a really big show, the Monsters of Rock, with Whitesnake, Aerosmith, Poison, the Band of Thunder. That was in Japan. Has Japan always been a big audience for you?
Well, the Monsters of Rock one, that wasn't in Japan. That was in UK, and then went around Europe.
Of course, Monsters of Rock is UK. New Year's Eve in Japan with 50,000 people.
Okay, yeah.
I got my notes wrong. Robby wrote them down right. I don't want to throw Robby under the bus. Good notes.
Sweet. You get people from Bedford working behind the scenes. That's what happens.
So those shows, because some of the questions that came in earlier were like, how do those shows feel to play as opposed to smaller club gigs? Because you've actually done the gamut of them, as I have, whether it's my solo band or whether I get to go play bigger places with Alice Cooper or whatever. I know what it feels like for me, but how does it feel for you to go from that club to stadium and back and forth?
Yeah, there's the old cliche. A lot of people say, "Oh yeah, every gig's the same," and and there's a great. But let's be honest. If you're playing in front of 100,000 people or 90,000 people, the buzz is a little bit more. Playing club gigs and is amazing because it's more of the music, and it's more concentrated. Whereas when you're playing a gig like that, it's not so much the music; it's just the whole the vibe and just the intense feeling, of being in that situation. Whereas if you're playing a club or a theatre is probably the optimum gig, I think, because 2,000 or 3,000 people.
You reach a bunch of people, you get that adrenaline from their energy, but at the same time it's pretty intimate
you're probably not when you're playing to 80,000 people or 90,000 or whatever, or even more than 20,000 people. You're not sort of concentrating so much maybe on what you're playing. You're kind of in the zone or in the moment of it. Does that make sense? I don't know how it is for you, but I mean you're you do a lot more of those sort of shows than I do. So, but that's
find
how I
do it. 3,000 people, you can actually be a little bit more. It seems like it's more people when you're in front of a theater crowd, like you mentioned, because the people are right in front of your face, as opposed to if you do play larger places, sometimes that there's the barricade is far enough away where it doesn't seem real enough. It feels like you're almost at a rehearsal studio, and there's a bunch of people way over there watching.
It's crazy. I saw that one you did in Australia, which looked pretty crazy.
With Queen, that was just recently. That was one of the last.
That's cool.
The last shows of the year that we did. This sounds so weird to say it in February, but we were lucky enough to open up for Queen, and like I said, it must be the same sort of feeling, to play with Queen that you must have had, doing Monsters of Rock with Aerosmith, and the only thing different is that you're playing Monsters of Rock in the UK, and you probably had. Did you ever go to Monsters of Rock concerts before as a fan? You're doing it. It was such a big thing because rock was never a big thing. It's a real underground thing in the UK, right. Even though there's 100,000 people that turn up for this show for just five bands. So I went to 4 or 5 of them before that, and I actually went to the one before I actually played it. I went to the last one. I went was. I think it was Iron Maiden headlining and Guns N' Roses were the opening band. And that's when, unfortunately, a couple of people died. Right. And I was in the audience at that. And
and then they, because of what happened, they didn't have it the next year, which was 1989, and then 1990, I wasn't in the crowd, I was on stage, you know.
See, when I was growing up in the Bay Area, Day on the Greens, that was this sort of equivalent to your Monsters of Rock. And I remember, you know, I was able to take an actual movie camera, not a VHS, folks. This was like 8mm. I brought an 8mm filming camera to go watch Cheap Trick, and I filmed them. I remember going up to the front row and filming Cheap Trick and Journey headlines. So it was a couple years earlier, but I'm actually really happy for you that you were able to play that huge festival that you kind of went as a fan one year, and then you're on stage the next.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one year I went there, and the two opening bands were Metallica and Bon Jovi. ZZ Top were the headliners. Yeah, doesn't
that seem weird now? Like when you think about it, how the positioning of bands go. And you actually have another band with one of those headliners. That headlines all the time, and that's called the Down and Outs. I know that a lot of Guy Griffin fans know about that already, but maybe there's some people in the chat that don't know about the Down and Outs and the band that you have with Def Leppard lead singer Joe Elliott. Can you talk about the Down and Outs, and then and who's in the band? I know there's a couple of the Quireboys in it, or I know keyboardists, and so tell us.
Yeah, we've got the other members outside of Joe is Paul Guerin on guitar from the Quireboys, Keith Weir on keys from the Quireboys, and we've got Phil Martini, who's in a band called Wayward Sons that are doing well in the UK. He played with the Quireboys for a while, and Cher from Vixen.
Oh, Cher playing bass. That's awesome. Yeah, she's great on it.
Oh, she's fantastic. You know, she actually did a gig. She did a gig with the Quireboys when we did the Monsters of Rock cruise a few years ago, and she hadn't had a rehearsal with us. We just got together in the cabin or whatever and went through the songs, and she learned everything, and it's one of the best bass players I've ever played with. So when we needed a bass player, I said, Joe, look, I know you might have to pay for a few flights for her and stuff, but she's amazing, and it worked out great, and especially with her backing vocals as well. You know, it brings a different thing to it.
And her personality is so cool.
Oh, she's great. Yeah. She's great. Yeah, she's a
great band member.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of shows with Vixen throughout the years, Alice and Vixen. So we always kind of meet in catering and say hello. Maybe you know what? She'd be a great person to have on in the trenches.
You should.
Thank you very much. We'll give her a call out.
Yeah,
Robby, get on it. No,
actually, this T-shirt I'm wearing is her husband Bam from the Dogs to More.
From Dogs to More, yeah.
And Quireboys, actually. He just played with us on the US tour.
Nicely done.
Just did. Yeah, there you go. See the segue? I did that. So there's one of their T-shirts, and he makes fantastic jewelry. Unfortunately, I'm not wearing it at the moment, but usually I put it on for gigs, his jewelry. It's really cool stuff.
Well, you didn't know that Tony Visconti produced the Electric Angels. This is another story you might not know. Bam and the Dogs to More, we opened up for them in New York City. Electric Angels did, and that's the show that we got our record deal.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So
it's all intertwined. All this rock and roll stuff, isn't it?
So there was a little bit of a break from Quireboys, and you did move out to Los Angeles, and you like you said, you took it. The Struts are taking it from the Guy Griffin Quireboys handbook, but you moved out to Los Angeles, and you started a band called Glimmer. And I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about Glimmer, and was this your taking a stab at lead singing? Was this your finding your own self? How did it come about? And I see that you were on Atlantic Records, which was the same label that I was on with the Electric Angels. So
how did that work out for you?
Well, we're talking about our other bands, but we're talking about Glimmer right now.
No, it was well, the thing is, after the Quireboys split up, you know, I wasn't quite sure what to do. I had a couple of attempts at putting bands together, and it was very difficult. So so basically I was just writing songs and trying to decide what I wanted to do, which direction I wanted to go in. I didn't want to try and do anything like the Quireboys. There's no point, you know, and I can't sing like Spike, you know. There's no
one
point
can
trying
sing
to,
like Spike.
there's no point in trying to replace that. So
Right.
so basically I started finding my voice, if you know what I mean, as far as singing. You know, you can't really just figure out how it's going to be or how it's going to sound until you're playing in rehearsal rooms with trying to get above the volume of a proper rock and roll volume band. So
way before inners, folks. This is before in-ear monitors and everybody has like, you know, high fidelity sound in their rehearsal room. This is actually just renting out a by the hour place with probably a shitty amp and just cranking it up because that's the only thing you can do. Yeah,
basically. So I did a lot of demos. I used to work out of a studio in Santa Monica called 4th Street Studios, and the guy who owned the studio, Jim he was fantastic. Had some great ideas, and it was an old studio that used to belong to the Beach Boys, and they had all this old gear in there, and Jim would play bass with me. For a while, I had a drummer called Bones who was in LA Guns for a while. It was this amazing drummer, and so I had those two do a couple of showcases for me. And it was that thing. I just went around. Every record company was about to sign us, and in the last minute didn't sign us. And
let me guess, they wanted to hear. Can we hear just one more song? We just want one more song.
I mean, I remember. I mean, this is back in the day when there was a lot of money floating around. I mean, I got flown out to New York. Actually, I had Muddy from Burning Tree.
Muddy's a great bass player. Muddy Stardust, for those of you that are listening on the chat right now, he was actually the missing Los Angeles that wasn't on our last Tuesday's live stream in the trenches. He was the only one that didn't show up, but he's amazing bass player. And he would always carry his bass in his. He'd always carry his bass in his trunk. Did he have his bass in his trunk with you?
Yeah, I played in a few bands with Muddy. I played in his band, which was called Loaded, and I played in that in LA. But I remember they flew me and Muddy and the drummer we had at the time, Martin, and who ended up being the drummer and who was with me all the time, and he ended up being the drummer in Glimmer. And they flew us out to New York, Mercury Records, and Danny Goldberg, and all that. All that sort of stuff, you know. And
wine and dine, right?
Oh yeah, limos. You know, going out to Connecticut to do these demos, and then they decided they didn't want to sign us. So I was like, all right, well, whatever, you know. Well, I didn't say whatever. I wasn't very happy about it. But
you're looking at two guys that were in the music business when there was money in the music business. We love it, but we're kind of loving it and being creative now because at least we realize that we're all on the same level playing field. But back then, they definitely had the checkbooks and they were writing checks. I love it.
Yeah, I mean. The whole thing, Holy Grail was getting a record deal, wasn't it? You know, you had to get a record deal,
right?
And you know, and in LA, it was all the talk. Did you hear so and so got $1 million, or you know? And you think, you know, they don't mention that's the you've got to pay all that money back. You know,
it was the equivalent of Instagram followers. If you had this many followers, then you know, then that was the equivalent of some sort of record deal. You know, I'm glad that we're broadening your horizons and teaching you about new bands to look at. You sometimes you have to go back to go forward. I'm seeing that. Was this like a power trio band, or was it a power pop trio?
It started off like it kind of started off like that, and then I had a good friend. I went back to England for a little while because it didn't look like it was going to happen in LA. So I went back to England for about 6 months, and I ended up getting a friend of mine from Bedford, Luke Bossendorfer, and he was a school friend from Mark Rutherford,
right?
Where Robby went to school as well. And
School of Hard Knocks.
yeah, the School of Hard Knocks. And he was a guitar player, but he said, I'll help you out with the bass player, because we'd lost the bass player. And then I got a record. I was offered a record deal whilst I was in England. Come back to America. So I went back to America, and Luke had to make a decision, a life-changing decision, and he moved to America with me, and he's still there in Los Angeles, and doing very well for himself. And he ended up playing in the Quireboys for a little bit, and so then
the
I got
Quireboys seem to be like a lot of members of the Quireboys, like, you know, whether it's for a short time or could you be the UK LA Guns? Could you be the version of UK LA Guns
where
you have to go?
Only one of us. There's only one of us at the moment. So there's only one version.
Yeah, that's right. There's only one version. There's like about 2 or 3 with LA Guns at any given moment.
Complicated.
Well, at one point, you guys all do get back together, you know, and the nucleus is you and Spike. You guys get together, and you get to the point where you get in this groove, and I'm just studying your discography. You get into this groove where you put out an album almost every single year, and that's the cycle that I was telling people about. The work ethic. You know, it's from whether it's 2008, 2009, maybe a couple of years off, and then there's another Beautiful Curse, 2013, Black Eyed Sons, 2014, Saint Cecilia, 2015, Twisted Love, 2016, White Trash Blues, 2017. So what is that cycle like for you guys to just record, tour? I guess rehearsing, we mentioned, is not always part of it. You don't need to. At this point, you know all the songs. Wow, look at that. Vic's got all the album covers up.
Yeah.
That was quick. Okay. Well, that was, I remember that one.
It's one of them. Yeah.
So with all those albums, I mean, do the ideas, do you feel pressed for ideas, or are they coming because you know the cycle of writing has to happen during this time? Like, how do you do that? Because I can go through definite droughts of, like, you know, I don't know what a riff is anymore. I don't know what a guitar riff is. But then there's other times where I'm like, oh man, I can write a lot of songs in a quick succession. How does your process work with that?
Well, usually there's a few sort of things knocking around on the phone. You know, I'll just press record on the phone with a guitar, or just sing something into a phone. And then the next day you listen to it, go, what the hell's that? You know, it sounds like some madman just sort of, mumbling into a phone. But sometimes there's some good stuff there, and like Garage Band. Sometimes, you know, I never do a full demo or anything. My attention spans too, you know, for doing the whole song. But if I've got the verse and chorus,
there's people much more qualified to
put it together,
to put it together into a song, and those people are called producers. That's exactly why they produce music. We're definitely on the same page when it comes to that. But at the same time, we do both share the love for the performance and for the live show. And when you do play live shows, which you do play a lot of them, what is your sort of guitar of choice, your equipment of choice? Because I see that you were talking about the vintage guitars that you have, and that's the main one that you play.
I see somebody, Gregory, talking about the gear here. So because a lot of times what we'll do is we'll sort of vacillate from good old rock and roll stories and sort of us going down memory lane in some ways to, like, my other second sort of rabbit hole that I like to fall into besides Pornhub is equipment hub, So and you like go, okay, what type of equipment are you using? And I saw that are you using the Blue Amp as well? I've been using myself and Paul have been using those for about 5 years, and before
I use one too.
I did. I know. I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. Just when they because the company JHS that we do a lot of our guitar stuff vintage, they also do a lot. They distribute a lot of stuff. They're one of the biggest music distributors in the UK. So the Blug, or the blue guitar, the Thomas Blug
Thomas
amp,
Blug, yeah.
and Blug, sorry, and
Thomas Blug amp one. They're really, for those of you out there that are guitarists, and I know there's a lot of you out there listening. You do have to check it out. It is the one. It fits on your pedal board, and it's the one sort of pedal board amp, the only one that I've ever played through. I feel can compete with a quote unquote real amp. Like for me, I'm a JCM 800. I love that sound. I love it. Feels like you're pushing air. So there you go. Susan Burkholder, Officer Burkholder, longtime listener. She has gone to a couple of our Goon Squad gigs. I play whenever we have a club gig. Like if you're on, kind of like an off night of the Alice Cooper tour, when it's a night off, we'll book a gig under the Goon Squad, and I will bring out my little amplifier, my pedal board, and it's great. It's great for you. You do a lot of flying dates, so it's probably good for that.
Yeah, we fly in. I mean, basically, it's like old Chuck Berry style. We don't bring any of our own gear when we go on tour, apart from the UK. I've got all these amps in our storage, and they never get used anymore because they only get used once a year for a UK tour. And now I don't even use the normal amp. I've got Hughes and Kettner amps, which I believe that Thomas Blug was a designer for those amps.
He was working for those, yeah.
So I was using those anyway, and now I just use those all the time. We've done all these big you do like Wacken Festival or one of these, Sweden Rock, and I put the thing down, plug it in with the long speaker lead into the cabinet, and that's it. I'm ready to go. Plus a tuner. That's all I need.
Has your guitar of choice, whether it's not, maybe the brand has changed, but has the actual shape, changed over the years? Were you ever like once a Les Paul guy, and now you're a Kelly guy?
I was totally when the Quireboys, when I first joined the Quireboys, I was Les Paul, and I remember when I went for the audition or whatever, and once I got the job, they said you're gonna have to get another guitar, because I had some cheapo sort of guitar. So I went to wherever it was in London and got this picked out
Upper Gibson,
a Les Paul, Les Paul standard, and I ended up with a Les Paul Custom, which Luke Bossendorfer owns now.
That year, that weighed about as much as you did. It must have.
Oh, the custom was just, So
we're not giant guys, and when you have a Les Paul Custom, it's so heavy. Especially,
I'd be like this now if if I was still playing those. So, but yeah, because Guy Bailey, the original guitar player in the Quireboys and main songwriter back then, he was playing Telecasters, so I played Les Paul. When the band got back together, I think it was when Luke was the guitar player. He had that Les Paul Custom, which he'd bought off me, and it sounded miles better than my one. So I switched over to Telecaster, and Paul Guerin, who plays with us now, who's played with us for 17 years or something. He's a real Les Paul guy, and he's got great Les Pauls. So I just adapt. Would that Telecaster shape have anything to do with Keith Richards and that sort of? Well, it helps. It looks cool as well.
Yeah, it does. It
hangs well, doesn't it?
Oh, trust me, I've got my eye on a Telecaster for the next tour. I see there's one person that might remember that late '80s East Coast tour even better than both of us, because I told you, I'm a little. You didn't remember that dinner at Denny's or that late night breakfast at Denny's, but here is the original drummer of the Electric Angels, John Schubert. He's there. I just wanted to say, hey, John.
Hey, mate. Hey, we're all still here. We're all still alive. Amazing.
Well, now, John, You do need to get a haircut if that's original. If that's your current haircut, John, which I know it's not, but I love that picture. That's his shot from Candy. I can tell you.
I'm jealous.
We're all jealous. Trust me. He might be jealous of himself in that profile pic. But John, if you want to come on and say hello right now, maybe Vic, it's time to open up because we'd like to get some people on. They'd like to ask a question with Griff, and just hang on screen with Griff if you have a question about Quireboys, about the down and outs, or just about guys, general hygiene, whatever you want. We've been very lucky to have a friendly internet right now, and I think it's time, Vic, if you want to put out the sort of pathway to have people come up, that'd be great. But like I said, if people want to find out more about the Quireboys, and just about you in general, what is your social media of choice these days?
Well, personally, I'm Instagram. I've never been on Facebook, which I might have to if I do anything in the future. Musically.
You can bypass Facebook now, because now Instagram is the sort of the new Facebook, and then everybody's switching over to some sort of.
I've been on Instagram for quite a long time. I'm my handle.
Yeah, Griff 69 pics. Do we have a graphic for it, Vic? Yeah. Let's see if we have a graphic for it. Did Vic not put that up? Oh man, Vic, really?
Oh well.
No, he's got it. No, he does.
And then I'm in the process of setting up. I haven't posted anything, but it'll be Guy Griffin official to do music stuff, So I'm going to do that. I'm getting all 21st century now, and obviously the Quireboys stuff is all there, www.quireboys and the Quireboys on Instagram, and the Quireboys. This is rock and roll on Facebook.
Cool. Let's put that screen on real quick at Griff one more time. So for his Instagram, Vic, do you have that? There you go. At Griff 69 pics. So start following that right now. If you're not subscribing to our video channel, or the Ryan Roxie official, please do that right now as well. And as we have the studio filled with some people that might want to come on and ask Griff a question, we will answer this question. Will we get a new Down and Outs LP in 2021?
Well, I hope so. We had high hopes for going out and touring this the new album. This Is How We Roll. Obviously, Def Leppard are very busy. Quireboys very busy. Vixen, everyone very busy. But and then with everything that was happening in the world right now, that put paid to that. But it's going to be a continuing thing. We all love doing it, and it was great. We just got the album of the year from Planet Rock in the UK.
Man. Congratulations!
Yeah, so thank you. I've got it over here. Look, I was told to bring this.
Please do. Well, please show it. Now, of course, the internet's acting up a little bit, so it's kind of a little bit. It's like your award.
How's that?
Yeah, it looks a little bit like your awards in witness protection, but it's okay. No, it's
so. Yeah,
that's awesome, man. Congratulations on the award.
Thanks.
Did it start out as the Down and Outs? Did it start out as just a jam band because you guys all like T-Rex, you all like the same type of old school rock, and then it morphed into original, or was it always an original project from the beginning?
No, it all came together because at the time we the Quireboys were with a record label, or the guy who had the record label was called Mick Brown, and he was involved with Ian Hunter, and still is, and Joe Elliott is a massive fan, and of everything Mock the Hoople, and so when they were getting together, they wanted Joe to do something for the put something together for the show, and then it was like, well, you get the guys from the Quireboys. I mean, they're total Mock the Hoople, So
right.
So that's how it was put together, and then we did all these rehearsals, doing all these songs, not by Mock the Hoople, but all the offshoot bands of Mock the Hoople, like the British Lions and Mock, and we did the gig, and it went down fantastic. It was at Hammersmith Odeon. You know, it was just a dream come true playing with Mott the Hoople, and then it just seemed we can't
well,
just leave
I can tell it's
a
dream come true because you called it Hammersmith Odeon. It's now
Hammy-O.
What is it now called? Something else by some company. It's called the Verizon Center. It's all it's called Live Nation something.
Yeah, Hammersmith Odeon. You know, that's all
always
it is.
Be that.
That's all. But yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, that's the Ziggy Stardust stage. You know, that's where he announced that was the end of Ziggy Stardust, and that was Hammersmith Odeon.
That's where I was able to film Brutally Live. There you
go. It's
DVD. It's a guy, and I think at that point was it called? Yeah, it was Hammersmith Apollo or something like that.
Yeah, the Apollo. Yeah. It was when we played with Mott the Hoople, but
perfect. Well, hey,
same place.
Your thoughts about Spanish guitar? We have a question about
Spanish guitar.
Yeah. Do you play Spanish guitar? Have you ever?
No.
So
I wish I could. I can do that sort of do one thing and make it look convincing, and that's it. You know, I wish I could. I'm actually, when I started, I used to be able to play, finger picking style, and I'm trying to get back into that because I'm useless at it nowadays. You know, I got lazy with it.
Well, what I did find over the years is that you've gotten much better and much more accomplished at slide guitar. Is that always been something?
Yeah.
Did you? Is it like in slide? And because I could always fake it enough on tape or fake it enough, when we demo to. But I've seen you play it live, and you've actually become quite good at it, man.
Thank you. That's very nice of you. Well, I'm kind of faking it as well. You know, I play in open G. You know,
that's not faking it. That's Keith's old. That's his whole vibe, right?
Our other guitar player, Paul Guerin, is actually a really fantastic slide player, and he would play in normal tuning, you know, and but because I played the original stuff. Played the slide, you know, I'm stuck with it. I'm stuck with all that open G stuff, which it's great. I love playing it, but it's changing guitars every two songs, you know, to play this open G stuff, you know.
Right.
You know, right. I was the one that actually was taught that off of Jim Cregan when he was producing us, because he thought we were playing in that anyway. He said, "Oh, it's great to hear a band playing in open G tuning," and we were like, "What's that?" Because we just used to play, you know, just a G chord and C chord and all that. So,
let me ask you this.
So he taught me that
because Spike has such an original voice and it has such a unique quality to it. Have you ever had to change the tuning for live versus the studio, or what have you always gone A440 standard E tuning, or have you ever gone a half step down? What's your tuning?
The tuning is just regular tuning. We haven't gone down a half step yet.
Never.
And we no.
Man, that's impressive.
He's got like a sort of high register, you know, that he can hit, but it has been suggested a couple of times to make it easier. But he's like, I'm all right. I can't be bothered with it. I'm like, all right, whatever. You know, because
I'm wondering if it's so much in his wheelhouse. It's so much of a muscle. It's just so, you know, normal for him to sing that, and he's got that completely down. And it might sound weird if he was to change the pitch of something. He might have to completely change his muscle memory. It just seems like his throat has muscle memory.
It could be, and you know, like I said, because we don't get together that often, you'd have to have quite a few rehearsals to get into the groove of that. Even for the guitar players, because we play half a step down with the down and outs.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, I think most rock bands do play half a step down, and it does add an extra thing in a way to, dynamically through the guitars, but it's also very different playing it. You have to get used to playing in that. Even though it's just a half a step down, it's quite a drastic thing. Even if playing lead,
everything changes.
You're over bending. Right. So no, I do that all the time anyway. But yeah.
For those of you out there that are listening that are playing in bands, if you want to be nice to your singer, definitely go down a half step. If you want to be super nice or you want to try and sing yourself, go down a whole step like myself with my solo stuff. Yeah. And you can drive your bass player crazy because now they're playing a whole step down. Or if you just want to tough it out and be in a band in Sweden, you go standard E tuning, because almost every band I've played with in Sweden has always been standard E tuning.
I think the thing is, it depends on the singer. I mean, I guess if you're going to record a record, maybe record it in normal tuning, and then when you go out live, you can take it down half. You can take it down half a step, and it's not it's not going to be noticeable to the audience.
I love it. Well, hey man, because of the sort of internet sort of making you a bit of a witness protection agency type of person, I've been told by our producer that we can't put we just can't put anybody else in the studio right now because it would mess with the internet. So unfortunately, sorry folks out there, I can't let you in right now because I need to have Griff for a couple more minutes and get his ear and just have him hype up what he's doing right now, what's going to be happening when all this C word stuff sort of we're back in the clear. And it's kind of weird now because we are at that time where everyone's like, hey man, it's been great. I've taken a time out. I've had times to sit back and reflect, but now the sun's coming out. Now the summer festivals are supposed to be here, and now there's no summer festivals. But looking on to past that, do the Down and Outs and do the Quireboys have plans for late 2020 or 2021 at this point?
Yeah, well, the Quireboys, because we're working all through the year, usually, we had a lot of gigs booked. So we have a lot of gigs rescheduled. Some of them are rescheduled for later this year.
Right.
Some have been rescheduled to next year. So there's loads of stuff in the book, and a couple of festivals obviously have been rescheduled for next year.
So obviously quireboys.com, or just hit you up on your Instagram sites. We are going to try something. All right. We'll try it once and we'll see if we can get someone on, because I just got word in my little in-ears from my producer that we could try to bring someone on to see, but like I say, you're still a little bit fuzzy up there, but let's bring Deggy on and see if this will work with the internet. Hello, Deggy. Welcome to the show.
Yo, how's it going, guys?
How are you?
Yeah, man. You got Guy Griffin right now. Do you have a question for Guy?
How's it going, dude? You all right?
Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, no, it's just it's a question for both of you guys, actually, really. What's your favourite venue to play in the UK, and is there any left on your hit list that you've not played yet?
That's a good question. Go ahead, Guy. Do you have? I mean, you've probably played them all. Is there any ones that you have not?
The garage in Glasgow is fantastic. I love playing in there. The Forum in London, which used to be called the Town and Country.
Amazing. Yeah. Sick. Like,
Nottingham Roxie. Go on. Sorry.
Well, I'm going to be a little bit. I'm going to be a little bit obvious here, and I'm going to say, because I've played Wembley Arena enough times, and I'm very happy to do that. Man. It's always great to say you've played Wembley, but I want to say I've played Wembley and played Wembley fucking Stadium. So there you go. There's one. I know it's like the Foo Fighters and Queen are the only two bands that have done it, but at the same time, I know there's. But I would love to one point with Alice when he's doing sort of his. Farewell thing, Wembley Stadium, because I think Alice has that sort of impact for the UK, but you never know.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll happen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Wembley Stadium's changed. It's a new one now, but it's still Wembley.
Yeah,
you can still say hello, Wembley.
Yeah, man. For sure,
yeah.
Well, thanks, Deggy, for coming on. All right, man.
I just want to say I'm very. Yeah, man. No, cheers for having me.
What did you want to say?
Oh, I just wanted to say, just wanted to say cheers to the Quireboys for having my band Gorilla Riot open up for you for the orchestral shows in London later this year.
Gorilla Riot. Yeah, actually, Johnny, our manager, sent over the stuff, and I was having to listen to it. So it was, we had to approve it, and I approved. It was fantastic. So it'd be great to meet up with you guys when the gig happens. Great band.
I think the second's gone, but no. I just wanted to say thank you. Oh, cheers, dude. That's really nice to hear.
No worries.
Cheers for having us on the show, and
we'll see you there.
Forward to seeing you in September.
See you there, mate.
Nice one.
Nicely done. There you go, and you got the hook. You got everything. Everything happened for you.
Yeah.
Vic gave him a hook, and it was great. And he asked a question, but honestly, the internet was a little bit dodgy. It was. So we'll stick with some of the questions that are coming in from the chat, which we thank you very much for being a part of these live stream in the trenches, because sometimes we tape them and we film and have them pre-taped, and then we air them on weekends and Thursdays. But I love Tuesdays to do the live stream, and I love hanging with someone that I've been able to have a long history with. We're both, we've been in the trenches, man. There's no doubt about it. We're still playing guitar.
The Coconut Teaser and Los Angeles.
Now that's a big gig.
That's a gig.
I just actually found out that Len Fagan passed away.
Yeah. It's awful. Such a great guy. He was such a. We remember how he really nurtured the bands that he liked there, and really helped them out. For all the right reasons. He was a really cool guy. Really cool guy.
Yeah, with Electric Angels, the Coconut Teaser was basically cutting our teeth. They were our stomping grounds. It's probably held true with Glimmer. Was Coconut Teaser still going with Glimmer? Yeah.
Started off playing in there and pre sort of Glimmer, but the same thing. All the bands I had and five. There was about 7 or 8 bands a night and big scramble to get all your gear set up and then do your thing. It was so
before it was before like a back line, like a universal back line was actually so like nobody really thought of that. Like everybody has to bring their amp in their whatever ratty car that they have, and they have to like bring it up those staircase and stuff, and bring it up the staircase when you're sober is fine.
Yeah,
but it's the bringing it down at the end of the night when you're drunk and you're
when you're soaking up the glory and you forget. Oh shit! I've got all of a sudden you're a rock star and you forget that you've actually got all this gear that you've got to load out.
The Coconut Teaser glory. I love it. There's my burning question. Where do you get a producer? How do you find an arranger? Well, I mean, when you do your songs, you're pretty much the arranger of it, aren't you? Or
nowadays, but you learn all that stuff if you're lucky enough to have worked with good producers. We'd
soak it up.
With like if you work with Tony Visconti or people, we work with a lot of producers ourselves, Chris Kimsey and people like that, Bob Rock and all that, all those kind of people. But
what album did you do with Bob Rock? Because I did a
the second album.
With him. Oh, the second album.
Yeah,
okay.
the second album, Bittersweet and Twisted in Vancouver.
I'll be straight up about Bob. Bob was he was scrutinizing my chords though. When I played. Dude, he could hear every overtone that mice couldn't hear. So I mean, he really did put me through that ringer. But the end result, as far as an album and a pop album, if you listen to Tal Bachman song for song, he did a great job of that. But
that was a great song. It was a great song.
And that was the album that he did with you, obviously, Bittersweet.
Yeah. So we went to Little Mountain Studios and then we did some of it in London, and then Chris Kimsey worked on it as well.
It's awesome to I think that's actually really good advice that you gave, is like, how do I find a producer? Well, hopefully if you can work with one of them, we've both been lucky enough to be able to work with a bunch of them. Tony Visconti, Jack Douglas produced the Slash a Snake Pit record. I talked about Bob Rock, and you as well with Chris Kimsey. These are all people that are really quality producers. So you try to sort of pick their brains and sort of take notes when you see them behind, and then eventually become a little bit of your own, producer. So do you think I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, and you find with a lot of these producers, they have their certain little tricks, but a lot of the time they're just sort of trying different stuff out just for the hell of it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, because I mean, it's different for different bands. You apply different things to different bands, and also it's more about being a people person as far as handling fragile egos in the studio, and a lot of musicians are very intimidated by the studio. Right. It's very intimidating atmosphere back then anyway, going into a big studio that's costing $1,000 an hour or something.
I think I'd be a good producer at this point, like what you're saying. I would be a good producer in the sense of what a traditional sense of a producer is. I was like, oh, that's good, that's bad, that's shit, and sort of form the songs of what it was, but not dial up the tones, because that traditionally is what an engineer would do. Yeah, an engineer is great at that, and so I feel that at this point I could deal with those egos because I've spent my career playing in bands with not fragile egos, but just large egos. And you should have a large ego. I heard this today, in order for people to love you and respect you, you need to love yourself and respect yourself. So I get the whole dealing with an ego, and that's fine.
You've got to have some sort of, you've got to have a certain level of confidence. That's for certain. Yeah.
So I think that at this point, even just playing in a band, as long as you've been playing in all these bands and, and playing with huge names, that you have been playing with, you have to, it's more about the hang. And this is a reoccurring theme that we have in the trenches, where, everybody's really happy that they get to learn about the gear and they get to learn about the person's career, but how do they manage to stay in those bands? How do they manage to work through that and stay in this business? And I think it's not so much about the practicing, because you have to know your instrument. Isn't it about the hang and being able to deal with other people as well?
Yeah, you've got to. The thing is with being in a band, it's fantastic. When you're in your 20s or your teens or your 20s, because you're like a gang. It's you against the world, and you haven't got all these outside things that the real world that comes in later on, and then it becomes, just putting up with each other's things,
Yeah. Your little quirk.
I mean, it helps if you don't have to room with anybody, which we
single rooms. Yeah.
That's the thing.
I guess if there was one thing, a piece of advice for people that are in bands, the minute you can go to single rooms just to get that sort of break, because that was what the difference was than any band I had been in before to the Alice Cooper band, was all of a sudden you had a single room, and that gave you just enough space that you would look forward to seeing the guys in the dressing room.
Yeah, I agree. That's what we that's what we do, and that seems to work. And I
want to get to this question right here, because is there anyone Guy would love to collaborate with? Because that's going to lead me into my sort of thing.
Yeah, apart from Ryan Roxie, of course.
Ha! It's funny that you said that. So when we close out the show, I might have something for you. No, but is there anybody else that you would like to that you haven't collaborated with? You obviously playing, with Joe Elliott now, and who would you like to maybe jam on stage, write a song with?
Well, I was actually kind of in contact with Charlie Starr from Blackberry Smoke. I hope he doesn't mind me saying that. But
no, he won't.
But,
He was actually our first In the Trenches podcast member.
Yeah.
Podcast interview. He was the very first one that we had.
Yeah.
So yeah, Charlie Starr's a great guy.
Very talented guy, you know, just guitar playing obviously, but the voice and the, you know,
whole thing.
Yeah, it's the real deal. I mean, I like a lot of sort of Americana sort of stuff, as well as like bands like the Jayhawks and people like that. And then I like a lot of the sort of pop rock stuff, like Jellyfish and all that kind of stuff. You know, there's a lot of those type of musicians that aren't necessarily in the rock and roll field that I'm in, because, you know, we've kind of got that covered, you know, with the Quireboys thing, you know. But I mean, there's so many people out there that are just super talented, you know. But it's good nowadays that it is actually easier to get in contact with people and say, all right, I'll send you a guitar track over, there you go, or a vocal track, you know. It's, you know.
Well, the one thing that all those bands that you just mentioned, not that they were just influenced originally by British bands, but you have the accent. You have obviously, and you have the accent that they would kill for.
I've got the Nigel Tufnell, haven't I? You know,
I know.
You know, goes to 11.
It does. Speaking of, that'll be our last Sunday live stream Sunday, episode 11. This one goes to 11. So that's what I want to talk to you as we close it out. So, folks, I can't thank you enough for coming on, spending the time with us. I know you have a million different, you know, podcasts to listen to, a million different live streams going on, but you chose to spend the time with Griff and I, and this was Griff's first live stream podcast that he's done, and so I just want to thank you for doing it. Did you enjoy the experience?
Oh yeah.
All right,
we'll do it again. Fantastic. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Well, hang on the line real quick. And folks, like I said, there will be a Sunday live stream Sunday, episode 11. It's actually called This Episode Goes to 11. So you'll be finding more and more about that in the coming days. But thanks as always for tuning in. If you'd like to find out more about myself, that's just hit subscribe on the Ryan Roxie Official, or just at Ryan Roxie on Instagram. And Vic, if we can put that Griff's Instagram right there, follow Griff right there at Griff69pics right now on the old Instagram, and of course at Quireboys on Instagram. And we will get out there before the end of the year, hopefully. If not, then definitely 2021, but maybe perhaps me and you before that, because we'll be in the trenches again. Thanks again, Griff, for showing up, man. Thanks, mate. All right, man. Until next time, folks, we'll see you, and enjoy the ride.
In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie.